Well, happy holidays, everyone. It is the Christmas season, and for that reason, we are diving into a Christmas movie. I don't think we've talked about one yet. That's kind of surprising. We've been doing this for how many years now, and we haven't talked about a Christmas movie? Truth be told, I don't like a lot of the popular Christmas movies that people talk about, like Home Alone or Elf or Die Hard. I like Die Hard. Die Hard's a great movie. I don't know why I brought up Die Hard. I like It's a Wonderful Life. The other day, I did a video talking about Santa Claus performances in film, and I started making a list of the ones I liked, and I was checking it twice, and I found out which ones were naughty and which ones were nice. David Huddleston came up a bunch. You know, the titular Big Lebowski himself. Well, in the 80s, he starred in a Santa Claus movie, playing the titular Santa Claus in Santa Claus the movie. He's the one that started Santa Claus the movie, and I had a vague recollection of that film when we talked about it. I didn't, know everything. I could barely remember the plot, but I'm like, Santa did Santa stuff. That's all I could remember. So I thought, let's watch a Santa movie. I have good memories of this one, I thought. I could be conflating this with a different movie altogether. I didn't know. Turns out, I had seen this movie before because there are key elements that I remember so vividly, but I did not remember a lot of this movie. In particular, I didn't remember the back half, which is terrible. I like this movie. I like the idea of Santa Claus as a guy. I think it's a fun story to play with. It's kind of cool that we can take a piece of folklore that's existed, permeated with a holiday, and have so many different interpretations. This is a very literal interpretation. The movie literally, okay, there's so much I actually want to talk about with this movie. It's so bizarre. This is the peak Christmas aesthetic, in my opinion. This is why I love practical sets so much. It's such a weird movie to bring up a love of practical sets for. But this just looks so good. The sets are huge and wooden and insane. Everything just looks really big and vibrant and fun. And I dig that so much. And it feels like a set. And people have criticisms about that. They don't like things to look like they're clearly on a soundstage. I love that shit. I love when a thing is on a soundstage because it shows you that a craftsmanship was put in place to make stuff for this movie specifically. That's really cool. Time and thought went into making it. And that's the case for this movie. Here's how it opens up, okay? So we're just going to get right into it. It's sometime 500 centuries ago or something. There is this frontiersman who has two reindeer, Donner and Blitzen, and he has a wife named Anya, or Anya. I think it's Anya, actually. He says Anya. And he travels from town to town, village to village, giving little wooden carvings to the children of these villages. One village is everybody living in one shack. He shows up, and Uncle Claus gives them these really cool gifts, and he heads off to another village. Him and his wife don't actually make it to the next village. They die in a snowstorm or something, and they wake up in the magical city of the North Pole where a bunch of elves show up to help them. Okay, three things we gotta talk about just in that scene alone. First off, I love the reindeer puppets. They look so cool. They don't look real. They look like they're just animatronic, puppety little reindeer that are very expressive, but very distinctively reindeer. I love it. Don't give me some real reindeer. Don't CG some reindeer for me. Give me these. They look better than any other reindeer I've seen. Second thing is, I love the aesthetic of the North Pole. It just looks great. Third thing, these are good elves, I think. They're all dudes, which is, I can't explain that, but they're magical beings who have been waiting for somebody worthy enough to become Santa Claus, which, we get it. This is a Santa Claus movie. You're looking at the bushiest bearded man you've ever seen in your life. Of course he's going to become Santa Claus. We just accept that at face value. What else would you do? What other job is the man who looks like Santa Claus going to get? Anyways, they show up and they're like, hey, we've been waiting for you. Come to our village with us and we'll show you what's going on. And then we go to Santa's workshop. It's just elves making stuff. Christmas hasn't happened yet. Christmas has yet to be a thing that has happened. They are just waiting for this guy to show up. It doesn't matter. They make a point of saying like it's out of time or reality or whatever, but it happens in like real time because we see like the chronological passage of centuries. It doesn't matter. Look, Santa's workshop is the coolest thing I've ever seen. This goes back to what I've been saying about practical sets. This is how Santa's workshop should look like. The 4 primary colors, everything's wooden. It looks like a time that never existed, and never in the history of like children getting toys have toys looked like this. There is such a distinctive version of your mind that is Christmas for children in an era that no longer exists, and that's what this is. Even though it looks like it's from the 80s, this workshop and the colors and the style, this is how I imagine like Christmas when you're in elementary school 20 years ago, like I was. Like it just has that feeling of like, that's Christmas in a nostalgic sense. Why am I getting emotional just looking at these big stupid sets? I love that. I love that more than I love some of the stuff happening in this movie. Walking through these sets is like, that's how I want Santa's factories to look like all the time. I don't want some postmodern like re-envisioning where it's like, we're like an Amazon factory. Don't ever give me that in any media ever. I don't care what time you are setting your Santa Claus movie in. If it doesn't look like this, I don't want to see it. Santa's workshop looks like this. A colorful craftsman bullshitty thing that is this. We meet a couple of the elves. The one we're going to pay attention to, his name is Patch. He's played by Dudley Moore. You might know that name. Chances are if you're watching this, you don't. Just think of some guy who is known but not known. He's like a different elf who likes to invent stuff. And he might become like Santa's assistant if we can't keep up with stuff. Okay, they just go straight into he's going to be Santa Claus. Him and Anya they fill into the roles. It is Judy Cornwell, who does not get a lot to do in this movie, I do understand. That's mainly because like Mrs. Claus and Lord doesn't get a lot to do, but she does good with what she's got. She's how you'd like imagine Mrs. Claus to look. She bakes cookies. She has a good time. She's like, I don't know about green for Santa. I'm thinking red. And then he gets the red suit, and David Huddleston just becomes Santa Claus. Just like that. And he's like, okay, the reason they were chosen is because he's a good guy. Yeah, because they can't have children of their own, which is what they've always wanted. He's going to be like a father figure, or like he's going to bring Christmas spirit to every child in the world. It doesn't matter. And this brings up like another key thing we have to talk about when it comes to Christmas movies, especially ones about Santa Claus. What is the mechanics and the lore of the world? You have to understand that nobody is thinking about it. In the real world, everyone's either like, Santa's a myth, he isn't real. When you get into the logistics of how are there presents that the parents don't know about, who gives a shit? This is a world where Santa is real. People see him. They don't freak out by seeing him. They know he's real, and they try to corrupt his business, okay? Santa is about to Santa out. Okay, we're going to do the Santa thing. He's going to head out. He's going to like save the world with Christmas and stuff. And it's just toys that no kid would ask for. And that's how it should be. I don't need some specific G.I. Joe that a kid needs. Just give me, we painted like a scooter green and a kid wants that. They want like a little wagon to push. I've never met a kid who's wanted a wagon. They just have wagons. So that's fine. Like, I love that. Now, this is where things start to take a turn, because he does Christmas for the beginning, simple toys for the world, and then a century passes, and a century passes. We get a funny joke in between the centuries passing where, like, a poem is written about him, and he gets upset because he laughs, like, with a hefty bowl full of jelly. It's that poem, right? So the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. And he's like, I'm not fat, ho ho ho, but he is. Like, we get it. And then we just cut to 1980s New York. And things take a turn for the worst. We're introduced to 3 new characters that are going to be central players in our story. Remember, this was the Santa Claus origin. How did Santa exist? Well, now we're in the present day, and we have 3 people we got to talk about. we have Joe. He's a street tough. He's dressed like he's from the 1940s, but no, he's in modern day New York. He's like, hey, what you doing here, Santa? Santa runs in this kid. He's like, hey, get your own fire in a garbage can to hang out with Santa. You're not the real Santa. Santa shows him he's the real Santa. This kid's like, wow, no one's ever gotten me anything before. This is pretty sick. And then we are introduced to Cornelia. She's a girl who likes Joe. They have like a weird flirtatious thing, but she's rich and proper, and she doesn't need, or she likes him, but it's like, it's not proper to hang out with those type of boys. And then we're introduced to BZ. John Lithgow, a young John Lithgow shows up, and he's like, what if capitalism? He runs like a toy company, but all the toys catch on fire and explode, and he's like, hey, who cares? Money, 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 money. And you're like, okay. Anyways, that plot turns into Patch. Remember when I talked about Dudley Moore? Well, Patch, he was vying for a position to be Santa's assistant. Him and another guy are fighting for the role. He builds like a machine that makes toys faster than an elf would. Santa's like, that's pretty cool. Turns out the toys suck, and then they start getting letters the next year like, can we get like a refund on the toys that we got this Christmas? So then Patch loses his job as Santa's assistant. Instead of just like working on something else, he leaves the North Pole, goes to New York, sees BZ, and it's like, you make toys? I can make toys too. Let me show you the toys I can make for free. It's easy. And then we sell them at like a marked price because BZ's a greedy man. Look, the elf gets swindled into helping capitalism, Mr. Capitalism, make some money. What is this special toy that he's going to make? It's like a lollipop or like a wand that if you lick it, you can fly or float. And if it's free, then you'll come back for seconds. What happened in this movie being about Santa? Like, Santa was learning a lesson about bringing joy to the world, and then suddenly the most evilest man you could imagine, who's constantly smoking a cigar, drinking some scotch, he just shows up and is like, this elf is right. I'm going to be rich off this elf. He's also the uncle to Cornelia. It barely matters, but it does come up. John Lithgow's going insane. Like, this movie was relatively normal for a movie about like a fictional man based on something stupid. And then Lithgow shows up and he's like, what if I was just going hard in a very specific direction that makes you uncomfortable? I thought this was about like reindeer puppets, and then suddenly an elf learns the trials and tribulations of like the stock market. I'm like, what is happening? And it goes into some insane directions. Joe gets kidnapped by John Lithgow, and Santa has to go save him. But then Patch like learns like what he's doing is wrong because he makes candy canes that explode if they get hot. What is that about? So the movie turns into Santa teaming up with Cornelia because she wrote a letter in January saying you have to save him. And we have like, I'd say it's a car chase, but it's like a magical floating car driven by Patch, who has Joe, trying to get to the North Pole. And Santa and Cornelia are following them with the reindeer. They have to save them before the car blows up. And they do like the super duper looper maneuver, which is like, it's like a trick that Santa's wanted to pull forever, but Donner is just too much of a coward to do it. Well, Donner braves it to save Joe, and they save them from the exploding car. None of the main four cast members like resolve the plot with BZ. He literally just eats a bunch of candy canes and he floats off into space and probably dies up there. I don't know what happens to him, but at the end we see him float up in space. Anyway, the day is saved through sheer randomness, and the story about Santa Claus turned into a lesson about how you can't replicate the magic of Christmas through artificial means or something. But it's not about family. Basically, the movie ends with like an elder elf saying, well, I guess Joe and Cornelia are here to stay. Guess I'll be their teacher. And you're like, what are you talking about? That's weird. Cornelia at least has a family. Joe doesn't because he's a street tough. What is happening? What? Like, it went off the rails so quick. and turn it into something lame. It was like a magical festival. Look at the fantastical world of like the sleighs and the reindeer and everything's just like working in like this syncretic noise of this beautiful machinery that's singing, and we're just building wooden toys for the kids of like the 1800s. And then suddenly it's like, actually we can make money off of this. Chomp on the cigar, push a kid down a cliff. What's happening? It goes from 0 to 60 really fast, and it does not pay off. And look, it's a cute little movie. I enjoyed myself watching it. There are some very weird moments, but David Huddleston is really good in this role. He's very commanding and very jovial, which I love to see. There is some good stuff in here. The back half is absolute trash, and I don't like it, and it loses so much of the momentum. But you know what? I like it. I think this movie's silly and fun, and I'm glad this is the one I picked. Maybe we'll talk about another Santa movie next week. I don't know. But I don't know. There's something kind of cute about what this did. Even if it's stupid, it's interesting. But it goes from being about Santa Claus to Santa Claus being a supporting player in his own film. To me, that's bad writing. It's called Santa Claus the Movie. Maybe the end should be about Santa. What does he learn? I'm keeping kids. It's kind of what he learns. But that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you all for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Happy holidays. Good luck.